we're just gonna have to wait and see what she's willing to do. At the end of the day, it's a fight sport. Everybody cuts weight. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Nobody enjoys eating less calories, but we're fighters. We're professionals, and that means that we have to act like professionals.
Currently being joined by the 2024 two-time ADCC world champ. It is Adele Fornarino, and she is currently enjoying New York. Last time we spoke, she was in San Diego getting ready for FPI 11. And so now we have to ask the question that is on everybody's mind. I know the robbery word is sometimes thrown around in combat sports rather loosely, but does Adele Fornarino feel like FPI 11 was a robbery?
How you doing, Alex? Look, I have a lot of feelings about this match. I think nobody walked off those mats satisfied. I don't think anybody was happy with the results or happy with how it turned out. But that's what rematches are made for. There's unfinished business, so we have business to attend to. It's just about penciling it in and getting it done.
And when it comes to the new rule set that they did, like Fight Pass Invitational has switched things up, and now they're going to completely rebrand to UFC BJJ. So it's a really exciting time. And I love how even in the heat of the moment, you were like, I don't want to take away from the fact that this is the first time women are headlining a Fight Pass Invitational card. So I love that you guys both handled it with grace. But I felt in the arena the energy of like everyone thought the decision was going to you. And then I took some time to watch it back and maybe try to figure out what exactly might have been going on through the judges' minds. So when we look at the judging criteria, initiation of bout ending techniques is the first and most important. Then we have effective action. And then the third bullet, control. What is your perception on the last bullet, the third bullet? Do you feel like that might have played a factor in maybe the judges' eyes who might be scoring like top position as more of a control factor?
Yeah, look, we spent an excessive amount of time analyzing the rule set and trying to understand the interpretation of it. We went into that match with the rule set in mind. We had a very clear strategy in that match, and played the strategy absolutely perfectly within that match based off our understanding of the rule set and our interpretation of the rule set. Unfortunately, given that there's a little bit of a MMA background in some of in this organization, I guess, and given what the audience that they're trying to pull into jiu-jitsu, they do unfortunately pander a little bit to the top player and give a little bit more credit, I think, towards the top player than I think was due at that time. But all of it is about the efficacy of the movement, right? The efficacy of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do. And we just don't really see much of effective control within that match. But hey, we've since gone back and we've looked at it. We've watched the match about a bajillion times to try and analyze it and trying to learn from the experience. I think because UFC is fairly new into the jiu-jitsu space, they're still figuring out and finding their footing for the rule set, and it's going to be a learning experience for everybody involved. But I think that they're only going to be able to grow and adapt from this experience and learn from the experience. So then it's only their 11th event. I think that there's some evolution to be made, but I think they're always going in the right direction.
Yeah, and when we experienced it at FPI 10, when it was originally scheduled, it was such a well-oiled machine, the way that they were handling the athletes. The athletes love the attention of like being picked up from the airport with their little UFC name tag and everything. So it really is taking jiu-jitsu to the next level of having a sense of professionalism. So I'm glad you got to experience it, but it was a long time coming. I know the background with you and Adele starts with you and Ffion starts with the 2022 ADCC World Championships. Then we want the rematch, and it was announced January 18th, originally supposed to be in March. The injury happens, and now it's pushed back till May. I know that you're such an active competitor, and really being able to continuously compete and stay sharp is a big thing for you. But how was that time off? Like just being able to do seminars and training. Do you feel like it was good for your performance coming for FPI 11?
I think we had the camp leading up, then 2 weeks out, the match got shifted. So we had about 2.5 months or so. So it wasn't really enough time to completely switch off. I got to do a couple of seminars. I got to enjoy watching some of my friends compete at the last FPI 10, which was very cool. But realistically, like, it wasn't too much time off. We used the time wisely. As soon as the match got shifted, we went back into development mode. Stayed sharp, stayed active in the training camp, so that by the time it rolled back around, that we were ready to go. So like not much time off. I think like right now this week and spending some time in New York, that has been a little bit more like time off, but I'm still training. I still have things in the back burner that I'm getting ready for, but I think that I just want to stay active. I just want to compete. I just want to move on to the next,
Well, we know you haven't penciled in too many plans for August 30th and 31st, and there was some breaking news earlier today. But before we completely move on from Fight Pass Invitational, Ffion did have quite the reaction once her name was called for getting the split decision nod. After the fact, I think she did a few post-fight interviews and said she can't control whether or not the other person is going to engage. She can only do as much as the other opponent will do. And she did mention that if there was a rematch just for her enjoyment of the sport, it would probably have to be at 135 because making 125 is difficult for her. So what is your instant reaction to her not denying that she would do a rematch, but wanting to do it potentially at 135?
Look, I have the utmost respect for Ffion. I've said this time and time again. There's no disrespect between the two of us. We're actually decent friends and have hung out, and she came to Melbourne. We got coffee together, like all the things, right? All the things that people don't see, and people just assume that there's bad blood where there's not. But at the end of the day, I think like she knows that the result was not the best result. I think any athlete who I've spoken to, any ADCC, UFC, IBJJF world champion athlete that I've spoken to knows that the result wasn't where it probably should have been. And that just is the reality of the sport sometimes. Sometimes the result goes in the opposite direction, and we can't understand what goes through judges' decision making sometimes, and that's okay. But I have the utmost respect for her for instantly calling for the rematch. I think that was the appropriate thing to do, but also like it shows her character and shows that she is a fighter and she wants to do it properly then in the next one. The reality is if we're going to do a rematch, we're going to do a rematch at one. It makes sense to do it at 125. Like that's where the original match happened. That's where the rematch should happen to make sure that there's some continuity with what we're actually doing. But at the end of the day, it's like I want the rematch, so we're just gonna have to wait and see what she's willing to do. At the end of the day, it's a fight sport. Everybody cuts weight. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Nobody enjoys eating less calories, but we're fighters. We're professionals, and that means that we have to act like professionals.
Yeah, we all definitely want to see that rematch. And I know now it's going in and you're down too, but a lot of people are kind of looking at this as like, okay, like how can we make this right? And I know Craig was even hoping that you would get the win just so it could be 1-1 and it'd be more likely to get a rematch quicker. But there's so many different promotions that are around that could potentially host it. So I'm super excited for that. I know the decision's already been made about how the last match went, but I do want to talk about that second round. I think it was about like 4 minutes and 20 seconds. There was quite an audible pop, at least in the broadcast. I don't know if there was like a microphone super close, but when you had a leg lock, did you feel or hear any type of pop? And you were like, oh, it kind of looked like she was about to tap, but what was your interpretation of it in the heat of the moment?
Look, the microphones are decently far away from the mat, so anything you heard on the microphones was a decently loud pop. Like I felt it, I heard it. It was a decently loud pop. Like it cracked. I had a really good bite on it, so props to her. She's super tough and willing to kind of take the pain and keep going on, and that shows the kind of fighter that she is. I did. I did feel like there was a decent bite on it. I thought that I might be able to get the tap there. I felt her kind of reach, but there wasn't enough like taps to actually get the submission, and we kept going. So yeah, she took some damage, but let herself go through it, and we're just gonna have to see kind of where that damage puts her. I know she's got some matches that are supposed to be coming up soon, so we'll see kind of if the damage impacted anything for her going forward. But I hope that she's okay. I hope that she has a speedy recovery because we want to see her active. We want to see her back out there.
Yeah, I definitely think that some future matches might be affected. I don't want to break any news, but there were some really big matchups that were supposed to be happening with
Yeah.
Polaris, and now things might be shifting. So it could very well have been an injury there or a different situation. But man, it was entertaining. And then the scorecards ended up being 29-28 Ffion, 27-30 Adele, 29-28 Ffion. I remember when they read out 27-30, you like shook your head and you were like in agreement with that one. And there were plenty of moments within the match where you were honestly like, it's what I wish jujitsu was more of, like the little bit of theatrics, like when she had, when she was going for some type of Aoki lock that wasn't really positioned right, you were like shaking your head no. Like I think sometimes that's what jujitsu needs, especially for the casuals watching. Sometimes they don't understand what's going on. And maybe like even in MMA, if someone gets like hit in the face really hard, they'll shake it off and like pretend like nothing happened. But like, I think sometimes it's good to like let the audience know like, hey, there's nothing there, especially when the judging criteria is initiation of bout ending technique. So whenever she had you in submission threats, what was going on through your mind? Like they weren't super locked in or anything that made you worried at all?
None. Look, none of the bites and the submissions were meant anything to me. Like there was no threat of actually ending anything. I think it was just trying to grabbing and controlling and looking to see if she can get some of the judges on her favor. That's no distur. You know, that's the game. You have to sell it to the audience. You have to sell it to the referees. But no, none of the submissions were anything. I walked off those mats feeling completely fine. No injuries, no nothing, no aches and pains or anything. Like I was ready to go the next day. But you know, we're in a sport where we need to make it interesting for the audience, and we need to kind of interact with the audience. And part of that is, you know, knowing or letting them know what's on and what's not on.
Do you feel like the match might have been more entertaining if there was more wrestling, or were you 100% sticking to the game plan of playing guard? Because I noticed that she also pulled guard too, so I was like, oh, I wonder like if there was any temptation to do more wrestling.
For sure, like we went into the camp making sure that I was well rounded, ready for the referees specifically to force us back to the feet, and I think that that's what kind of got me as well. Is you know, if they saw guard as a super passive position, then and they stood us back up, I would have been totally fine with that and played a little bit more on the feet. But I was never nobody ever told me that the guard was seen as that super passive position. You know, it's jiu-jitsu at the end of the day. Guard is a super attacking position. Guard is a really good threatening position. But if the referee stood us up, I would have been happy to wrestle, just like I would have been happy to play top position. I think as well, just incorporating like open scoring could have been really cool. So then we knew where we were towards that last round. If I had known that I had lost the first round, then that would have changed the dynamic on that last round, and we would have seen some other things happen. So open scoring could be a cool idea going forward, but we just have to wait and see what UFC want to do with their scoring. But like I do want to showcase some stand up. I do want to showcase some wrestling because I do work on it and I do enjoy it.
And then you got on the mic and made the ultimate call out. You're down to fight whoever wants the smoke, but also not afraid of those absolute divisions. Helena Kravair recently announced as the first woman in the CJI 4-woman bracket. What is on your mind for potential matchups in the near future?
I have a lot of matchups on my mind. And again, the call outs never come from a place of disrespect. They come from I respect you. I think you're great, so that's why I want to fight you. So there's always respect in the call outs. But you know, a Helena Kravair match would be amazing, given that you know she's absolutely dominating the scene at the moment. Quite dominant victories, very good submission hunter. She's doing gi and no gi. She's like front of everybody's mind, and that would be a cool match to have. And you know, the absolute weight classes and things like that don't scare me. Like I quite enjoy some mismatched weight classes, so I'll have a bit of fun with those. You know, I'm open to fighting anybody and everybody, especially working now with the UFC. There's some UFC fighters that would be really cool matchups to see them come back into the jiu-jitsu scene. You know, me and my team we're keeping pretty active, seeing who's back on the mats on social media. And we did notice that, you know, Ronda Rousey's back on the mats and she's doing some judo and she's doing some jiu-jitsu. So, you know, I think everybody would be really interested to see her step into the jiu-jitsu mats and see what she's doing at the moment. That would be a cool matchup, but obviously in an overweight division, I'm down to go with everybody.
And UFC BJJ is going to be making their debut June 25th. So you've gotten to see, did you actually get to see the Octabowl?
No, we didn't. So they kind of, because they were shooting the show, they kind of hid everything from us. I think they were worried that we were going to take photos and leak it out and all these things. But I got told when everybody else got told. So that was like a really cool announcement to see. I think it's a cool stage, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with everything, and how they utilize like the bowl style structure in their grappling matches.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting because now we have Andrew Tackett in that welterweight roster, and he kind of mentioned that his experience with the pit, like sometimes you get stuck in the corner, but now with the bowl, like it's just like, I guess, infinite flow that these guys can feel. But I was like, oh, tell me how it felt for you. But I guess you didn't get to see it, so you didn't get to try it.
There's going to be a bunch of gym owners that have just spent a whole bunch of money installing these pits, and now they go, fuck, we have to figure out a way to do rounded edges now so we can like start to incorporate a bowl. So there's going to be some pissed off gym owners, that's for sure.
It is such a crazy time in jiu-jitsu, but I am so here for it. Like, yes, I work for CJI, but I can totally appreciate everything that the UFC is doing. I'm kind of sad that it's becoming like them pitted against each other almost. But when you think back to ADCC versus CJI, now Mo and Craig are friends, and like everything was done for the good of jiu-jitsu. So I think a little bit of maybe not so friendly banter, the Spider-Man pointing at each other, you copied me, no, you copied me. Like all of that drama is going to be the best for jiu-jitsu in the long run.
I 100% agree. I think more bodies in the market make it better. But then, like, being the athlete, it's like, you get caught in the middle of all of it, and the reality is you just want to do jiu-jitsu, you just want to compete. You want to make both organizations happy. So for me, I'm just like watching the politics happen, but very much just wanting to do jiu-jitsu, wanting to enjoy jiu-jitsu.
I definitely feel you. Although I'm not an athlete, like even from a reporter standpoint, I'm just like, I just want more jiu-jitsu for everybody. I want more opportunities. I don't want any contracts that are so exclusive that it takes away the joy from fighters, especially grapplers who want to compete all the time. So I see both sides. And I think that when we're all like 60 years old and there's a bunch of different jiu-jitsu promotions and all these things going on, we're going to be like, yeah, it was all worth it. So
yeah, 100%. Well, we look back at ADCC and CGI and we go, that was pretty cool, and that was a moment in time for jiu-jitsu that really like boosted the sport. Even though there was so much stress and politics and all that shit about it, it was still something that we can look back on and be like, hey, that was something that did a lot of good.
Exactly. And now we have Dana White in the building for UFC Apex to head off UFC BJJ. And although there might be some haters saying, oh, the Ultimate Fighter hasn't been popular in so long, I feel like taking it and putting grapplers in it will really intrigue a lot of different people. And I think the cast they did it is so awesome. So I think there's a lot of great things happening June 25th. We also have the PGF draft happening June 25th. So what is your timeline looking like? I know that with the PGF, they're going to be doing a weekly event every Wednesday, potential super fight. You think that you could maybe get on Wednesday? What are you doing Wednesday nights, Adele?
Like I said, I want to be active. I just want to compete. There's nobody in the divisions that scares me. I just want to get out there and I want to do my thing. I'm free most Wednesdays, so I'm sure we can work something out.
And then we can also enjoy UFC BJJ. I'm excited for the day that they're going to have the UFC BJJ feature some women stars. So who do you think are some big names that could be on that show? I have a feeling that if they do certain divisions, it'd probably be 125 and 115, since they did 2 for the guys. I'm assuming they'll do 2 for the ladies as well.
Yeah, like I'd love to see the belts get introduced to the women's divisions, and that ranking system get introduced to the women's divisions. I think there's a lot of heavy hitters that have like a good opportunity to get in there. We're seeing the 145 division be super active as well. The Ana Vieira and Kel Canuto match was absolutely fire. There's Brianna St. Marie obviously sitting at like 145, 135 around that mark. She could be super active and super dangerous in that division. She's the best. Oh my gosh, she's the absolute best. There's a lot of really cool names. Obviously, the 125 is a super active division. There's myself, Ffion, Jasmine, Alex Enriquez, Julia Alves have been on the show so far. There's a lot of good names and a lot of depth in both of those divisions. So I'm sure we'll see a couple of title matches coming up in the near future.
I'm so excited for it. This is a great time for jiu-jitsu. I know you're in New York. I think June 12th you have something coming up. So if you want to let the audience know about anything you have in the works, the floor is yours.
Well, I have a few seminars coming up while I'm in town, so I'm very excited about that. I have one coming up in Manhattan and one coming up a little bit further out, but they'll both be posted up on my socials. Other than that, I'm really just enjoying New York. I'm going to spend some time here with my family because they're in town, and then going to head home for a little bit. I haven't been home to Australia for a minute, so to see all my friends there, all the crew at Dominance, all the crew at Absolute, Liv and Lockie, to see them and get some training in with them. But then, might be a quick turnaround, might be back in the US sometime pretty soon.